Topic is about mental imagery and how it connects to the movie Blast from the Past. For many years, mental imagery has been at the center of arguments about mind function. Many people believe it is among the most important human mental occurrences since it allows us to recall, adapt to change, explore, and make judgments. Such images are brought up from memory and cause a person to experience the original stimulus again or a different mix of stimuli. The study of mental images has always been hindered by theoretical and practical issues. The forms of mechanistic inquiry that might be carried out were practically constrained by methodological limitations brought on by imagery's intrinsically private character. Furthermore, behaviorism in psychology began to gain ground in the latter part of the 20th century. The relative paucity of study in mental imagery in comparison to adjacent areas like spatial perception and mental cognitive ability can be partially attributed to the interaction of these two barriers. Research has solidified our knowledge of visual cognition as a depictive input image with significant and unanticipated connections to visual perception, essentially putting an end to the so-called imagery argument.
Imagery and cognitive mapping. The foundation of memory is, according to researchers, mental imagery. When external stimuli are lacking in the case of perceptual experience or when actual activity is not performed in the case of motor imaging. Imagery is defined as an experience that is comparable to perceptual or motor experience. Mental imagery is crucial for conceptual learning and memory, and it can be utilized consciously or involuntarily to form novel arrangements and activate neuronal structures that are similar to those used for perception and action. Tolman, 1948, who observed rats traveling through an indirect single sequence of alleys and noted that the majority of them discovered the shortcut leading to food, is credited with the creation of cognitive mapping. Cognitive maps are mental images of physical location or spatial arrangements that people use for communication, navigation, or recalling significant information about their environment. Evans and Pestek, 1980.
Memory is the ability to store knowledge that can be sought and recover over time. Mental imagery and cognitive mapping appear to be essential elements for strengthening memory. Researchers use cutting-edge imaging equipment to identify and investigate various brain regions that are stimulated by various inputs and produce mental representations. Based on these findings, Coslin, Gaines, and Thompson 2001 hypothesized that mental imagery stimulates the same brain region as perception, and visual imagining uses neural networks utilized by actual sensations and activates mental controls in the same way as real-world experiences do. As a result, a mental imagery is regarded as among the most significant and successful memory training approaches, significantly enhancing both children's and adults' memory abilities, according to Hussey, Smolinski, Peryatinsky, Budson, and Ali 2012.
Short-term memory can temporarily store mental images, enabling geographical navigation across uncharted areas or remembering of names or numbers. Imagery can be split or grouped to create a single expressive whole, improving storage capacity. A short-term memory has limited capacity for information storage, Friedgenfurt and Silberman 2006. Moreover, mental rehearsals or repeats of short-term memory developed visuals will enable encoding and storing it for retrieving in a long-term memory, boosting its functional potential. Numerous links between encoding objects are created through imagery. Compared to individual features, interconnected mental representation form more reliable linkages. According to Gilead College 2005, imagery can enhance performance by enabling the person's codified skill elements into meaning cognitive units that can be quickly retrieved when necessarily and kept in a long-term memory. By performing enlarging neurological networks, the information that is stored in the long-term memory connected to previous visual and mental representations.
Connection of the topic mental imagery to the movie Blast from the Past. Psychologists generally define thinking as a mental representation and manipulation of information. When we think, we often represent information in our minds in the form of images. Mental image is not an actual or photographic representation. Rather, it is a reconstruction of the objects or events from memory. Mental imaging can also lead to create solutions to puzzling problems. Just like in the movie when suddenly President John F. Kennedy Christopher appears on the TV to announce that Soviet missiles in Cuba are aimed to U.S. targets. Calvin hustles to the guest out the door, hurries his pregnant wife into an elevator to take them down to his amazing well-stocked bomb shelter. where fish grow in breeding tanks, and the decor of their surface.
Cognitive maps can be defined as mental images and concepts that are built to visualize and assimilate information. It's also referred to as mental maps, mind maps, schemata, and frame of reference. Example of cognitive mapping in the movie is when the time Adam marvels at the outside world while buying supplies. When the mall staff told him that they can deliver his groceries to his home, but he realized he doesn't know their home address. He knows in his mind the image of the surroundings and know how to get in the mall. But he had trouble remembering how to go back to the bar. Many have argued that it's one of the primary human mental events that allow us to remember, plan for the future, navigate, and make decisions. Alan Pavio's dual coding theory. As a counter-argument to behaviorism and traditional mentalism, Pavios put up neo-mentalist theory by examining how ideas, picture, and meanings are expressed behaviorally and trying them to a theoretical framework. He wanted to comprehend the functions of ideas, meanings, and other elements that may be regarded as cognitive information processing.
Fabio differentiated between several imagery of notion. The introspective ideas hold the mental representation are diminished sensation with traits of perceptual modality. Image or implicit response in behaviorist theories. These are ideas were too simplistic since they were founded are unreliable and flawed study methodology to be truly supported by the evidence. Fabio set the dual coding theory in opposition to propositional theories derived from linguistic theory. This, by assuming that cognition was activity symbolic system, specialized in information interchange with the surroundings for adaptable and productive action. Fabio, 1986. He upheld the principle of two distinct systems, one focused on the processing and development of data about objects and nonverbal events, and the other focusing the relation with the speech.
Assuming that representations retain modality-specific qualities derived from the sensory modality in which they rely, the DTC represents the first concrete contrast to the linguistic propositional theory, which asserts that statements are of psychomodal conceptions. The key insight was that there is no univocal relationship between images and words. Relationships are always one-to-many rather than one-to-one. This relationship between the picture and the description is unique only because of the image's sensory experience itself. Avia begins with the finding that equivalent verbal stimuli are remembered in multiple ways, and also that gestural stimuli, objects or drawings of familiar items, are retained better than verbal stimuli, maintaining that such effects depend on the distinct ways in which verbal and creative processes are involved in stimulus processing. Using both creative and verbal coding systems, the item is encoded twice in this manner. A comparable process takes place when certain verbal cues that describe things and circumstances easily conjure up vivid imagery. Therefore, the improved memory method involves the capability of double coding, assigning linguistic tags to figurative stimuli, and creating visual imagery for verbal ones.
John Piaget and Babel and Helder endorsed the hypothesis that motion and imitation are also crucial in the creation of mental imagery, which was contemporaneous with Pavios' dual coding theory in Europe. The first distinction to be made to grasp Piaget's conception of mental imagery in the framework of his theory is between the figural and operative components and thought processes. Three types of knowledge are figurative, mental imagery, imitation, and perception. The transformation of things or known events is the focus of the operational part of knowledge, which is only achievable from the ages of 7 to 8. Although mental representations are closely related to the representational aspect, Piaget's problem also heavily relies on the operative aspect. The figural element stands in for the specific symbolic status of imagery and its function in the meaning-making process. To separate images from perceive, it is crucial to comprehend the distinctive symbolic nature of images.
Mental imagery is not simply an internalized replication of the sign or object. It is also firmly tied to mobility and more broadly to action. The origin of representation can be tracked back to the motor reproduction of mental imagery. The two types of imagery that correspond to the figural component and the operational element of knowledge are reproductive pictures and anticipatory images. The reproductive pictures that arise as a result of improvement of symbolic capacity, 18 to 24 months, are first built. They can only evoke the figural features of known things. They connect thoughts to a pre-logic and conceptual phase. To accomplish this, they must be comprehended because we are unable to create an image that predicts an operation without understanding it. Thank you for watching, and we hope to hear from you guys.